Welcome to this snapshot on seeded or delivered roles in Oracle SaaS applications. Now, when we talk about Oracle SaaS applications, what we mean is ERP Cloud, HCM Cloud. This is not a session for e-business suite that may be hosted in the cloud or any other such on-premises applications. This session is focused on Oracle Cloud applications. Now, the organization is Securing, and we are a software and a service organization. And as an organization, we combine software and services to not only establish what problems you may have in your security, in your configuration, but help you get through the resolution process. From what we've seen over the last decade and more is that the focus has been on reporting on what problems you have, reporting on what issues you may have. We take a different approach, which is we will help you find those problems, but also help you find the right resolution to get your security and your controls in line with compliance and your expectations. Now, back to today's session. We're going to be looking at seeded or delivered roles in Oracle Cloud applications. Now, let's start at the beginning and talk about the structure. In the application, ERP, HCM, you have at the top level an abstract role. And an abstract role relates to something that somebody might do in an organization that is above their job. So for example, they're an employee. And as an employee, you might be able to enter expenses, record time, request time off, those kind of things. Those are things you do regardless of what job you're employed to do. And that leads us on to the next level, which is the job role. And the job role, of course, should reflect the job that somebody is doing. And then within that, you might have duty roles, and duties contain the individual tasks that somebody might do as part of their job. So for example, I might be a sales manager, that's my job, and I might have a sales manager job role. And then within that, I might be able to enter sales orders and approve sales orders. Those could be different duty roles. And then down at the bottom there, you see we have this item called a privilege. And a privilege is the lowest level of security that grants us access to the pages in order to enter and update transactions in the application. Now, interestingly, you'll see there's a line from a privilege to a job role. You can attach or assign privileges directly to job roles in the application. You have a lot of flexibility as to how you can design your security within the application itself. Now, within the application, if you're not familiar with this is something called the Security Console. And in this screen here, we can see this is where we might set up a new user. Okay, so we can enter their name, their email, create their username, their password, etc. We can choose whether they're active or locked. And down at the bottom right there, you can see we can add roles to that user. In the same way, we also have a page for managing roles. You can see in the top left there, we have the job roles, duty roles, abstract roles. And below that, we have three key items. We have name, code, and description. Now, interestingly, and something to bear in mind as you go forward, is that the code is the only unique item there. In other words, you can have many roles with the same name, accounts payable, invoice supervisor. That's something you should watch out for, because when it comes to doing reporting, you don't just want to have to rely on reading that code when the name, the label, is a lot easier to read itself. So the only thing that's distinct is the code. You cannot create another ORA underscore AP underscore accounts and so on, the rest of that code, okay? But the name itself you can copy, and that will create confusion and problems going forward. The description, again, there's nothing to stop you from using that description over and over again. You'll also see that this particular code begins with ORA, and that tells me that this is a seeded or delivered role from Oracle. So this is one that comes out of the box. And we'll be discussing more about that as we go forward. But before we do that, on the right-hand side, we can see the privileges that are attached to this role: role name, role code, inherited by role name, inherited by role code. So we can start to see the structure of how this role is made up. In the top right, we can export this to Excel if we want to do further in-depth reporting. And we can also have various different ways of reviewing this role by the roles that are embedded within it. And as we see there, the privileges that are assigned. So as I say, seeded roles or delivered roles are there to get you up and running. They are utilized extensively because when you implement the application, they are a great way of getting you live quickly. They are predefined business processes there that you can use. And some examples: application implementation consultant. This will be used extensively during your implementation. The IT security manager, accounts payable manager, receivable manager, fairly generic roles that represent many of the tasks that your organization will be doing. So they're, as I say, a wonderful way to get you up and running, available out of the box that you can use on day one. Now, something that you need to be aware of, and the first kind of gotcha, is around release management. So, Oracle bring out new releases. Currently here in 2020, we're at release 20. And when you get that update will first go to your development test environment and then obviously eventually to production. And the wonderful thing is that Oracle take care of that process. However, what you need to be aware of is that by using the delivered roles, new functionality, and on the inverse, functionality that is removed impacts the delivered roles in your environment. If you are using delivered roles, with every update, the new functionality, the new privileges are assigned to various delivered roles in the application. So what that means is that when this update hits production, your users will get that new functionality. So if you don't prepare, if you don't review, to essentially remove that functionality, or at least review it to see what impact it's going to have, your users will get that new functionality when it goes to production. So various risks there to consider. Are we bringing in new functionality that various users should not have? All those kinds of questions. So the overall downside is that, and the list here, some roles contain configurations. And from a risk perspective, we're always looking for roles that can not only create, maintain, or approve transactions, but can also change the configuration of the application. That's always a risk, because we don't want users changing the way the system's configured, the way our processes are configured, and then being able to take part in those transactions. We've seen that segregation of duty conflicts are inherent in these roles. A lot of roles can create and approve various transactions. Many roles contain sensitive access risks, areas to sensitive data that you will need to be reviewing to make sure that those users should have that access and to comply with various pieces of legislation. And as we say, these roles are also updated during the update process. So some examples: implementation roles. I talked before about the implementation consultant. They have the ability to convert data, and that's within the application implementation consultant, supply chain manufacturing, application administrator, and so on. So a lot of these roles are introducing risks to your organization that you need to consider, ideally before your go live. So in this short session, our recommendation is to move to custom roles. So to move away from those ORA roles, copy and create new roles. And the great thing is they won't automatically get updated by the update process. Okay, you're now in control of those roles and what they can do. The downside is, if we're looking at an implementation that's on a budget, on a time scale, this is a slower process. You have to define your processes. If you're moving from an on-premises application, such as EBS or PeopleSoft and so on, obviously those processes are going to be easy to transfer. It's labor intensive. These aren't roles that are delivered that you can use out of the box. And of course, with all of this, there's more cost involved in the process. Eventually though, whether you do it pre-go live or post-go live, you are going to have to review your role structure. If you have to comply with things like Sarbanes-Oxley, a lot of the delivered roles introduce risks that aren't going to get you past the mark when it comes to audit. Now we have more documentation on these risks. We run various webinars, but if you want to get into the details, you can contact us. You can contact me specifically, lewis@securing.com, or visit securing, seecuring.com. And we have a full role design studio solution that has a library of predefined roles. We have a full role design service to go with it. Again, software is not always the answer. We have to have services as well to make sure that what we provide is particular, is unique to your implementation, and is going to fit your organization. But overall, our role design service will get the job done quicker than a manual process, and we also ensure that you're aware of any segregation of duty issues prior to these roles going into your environment. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. Again, you can contact us at the email and website above, and we look forward to speaking to you on the next session.